Image is a podcast of Redemption Church located in Huntington, West Virginia for the purpose of equipping believers to fully engage culture in a theologically faithful way.
Hello, Brandon here, and this is a recording that I made after Josh's last sermon. So today it's August 19th, and last Sunday we had this sermon that was basically kicking off this new series on the minor prophets, and Josh gave us a very quick and thorough overview on the different minor prophets, whether they were pre-Civil War, so when the 12 tribes of Judah were still united, and then after this, the split before they established the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah, which prophets were basically active during each of those regions. And if you were like me, he went through it so fast you didn't really get through recording all the notes. And also, you may be like me and you're a visual learner, and so I essentially put together a little cheat sheet with a little map, and I thought, maybe this might be helpful to other people as well. So this is the purpose of this. We're just going to go through a very quick summary of these minor prophets, when they were active, where they're active, what the minor themes were, and then we can kind of get our head wrapped around all the things that are going to be happening in this upcoming series, where we cover all of these minor prophets in detail. So without further ado, if you are listening to this on Spotify or Apple, or where you can't see the slide deck that I've prepared, you may want to check out the YouTube video, because I have some maps, I have some text, and I have some images. That's how I learn. I'm a visual learner. So here we go. All right. So first of all, we're going to cover the prophets that were part of the unified kingdom. So while they were the 12 tribes of Judah before they split, and you'll see if you're looking at the slide deck that this is including the minor prophets that are part of the united and early split, because there's a lot of debate about what time period these people were active. So they assume that it could be the united people, or it could even be like early split, because there's no way that they can get exact dates for these first two prophets that we're going to cover. So the first two prophets we're going to do, well, first Obadiah. So Obadiah was potentially active during the 9th century, so that would be 900 to 800 BCE. He was preaching to Edom, most likely from the region of Judah, so the region that's established during the pre-split era. And so his theme was condemnation of Edom for violence against Judah. So the second prophet, we have a much larger time period where this person could be active. So this is Joel. So he was active from the 9th to possibly the 7th century. So this means it can be anywhere from 900 to up to 600 BCE, and this is something that is still debated to this day, just because there's not enough information in the text to kind of pin it down to a specific time period. So he was located in Jerusalem. His theme was a locust plague as a theme for the day of the Lord, and his theme was also a call to repentance and a promise of God's Spirit being poured out to the people. All right, so these are the people that may have been associated as minor prophets during the united or the early split time period. And so the next prophets we're going to talk about are going to be the minor prophets that are associated with the northern kingdom of Israel. And here we go. So if you're watching the YouTube, so you can see the slide deck. So now we have a new map where the green is highlighting the northern kingdom of Israel, and the orange is highlighting the area that would have been part of the southern kingdom of Judah. And I know that Josh talked about why there was this split, and I'm pretty sure he's going to go into it a little bit more in depth. But we've also kind of talked about this before in previous series as well. So the first prophet we're going to talk about is Amos. So for the rest of these prophets, we have a little bit more accuracy when it comes to their time period of when they're active, because there is historical events that were part of their text, and there's some historical agreement with external resources that allow us to get a more accurate time period. So Amos was active during 760 BCE. He was from Tekoa, which was part of the kingdom of Judah, but he preached in the northern kingdom at at Bethel. So he preached at Bethel from Tekoa. So from the southern kingdom, preached in the northern kingdom. So his theme was calling out social injustice, corruption, false worship, and he was active during Jeroboam II's reign. So that's one of the reasons why we can have a more accurate historical time point. So next we have Hosea. So Josh mentioned him a bit this past Sunday. We'll definitely get into him a little bit more. So he was active between 750 and 722 BCE, most likely located in Samaria. There's a lot of agreement that this is where he most likely was, but there's a chance it could be someplace else. His theme is that his marriage to Gomer, who was unfaithful to him, he continued to be faithful to her. So this is a metaphor for Israel's unfaithfulness and how God still remained faithful to them. And he also was active during Jeroboam II's reign as well. Hence why we can get a more accurate time associated with his activities. Next we have Jonah. He was active during 760 BC. He was from the kingdom of Israel, but was sent to Nineveh, which is the capital of Syria. So I don't have Nineveh on this map, but if this was scaled properly, Nineveh would be slightly north but east of where the borders of the limits of this map show. So kind of like, if you can see where my little red dot is hovering, if you're watching the YouTube version, this would be approximately where Nineveh is. So Jonah's story is unique because, unlike the other prophets, Jonah's story is almost all about his resistance at first to God before being, accepting his role as a prophet, and then once he accepts, his short prophecy against the people of Nineveh. But his theme is also showing God's compassion, because Nineveh being the capital of Assyria, Nineveh was an enemy of the people of God, and God showed compassion for them, or was willing to show compassion to them. So even for Israel's enemies, God was willing to show compassion, and so that's a major theme. All right, so now we're going to go to what will be the third category. So our first were the minor prophets of the United or early split time period. The second category was the prophets from the northern kingdom. So now we're on to our third category. So these are the minor prophets of the southern kingdom, and this is the category that has the most prophets. And so first we have Micah. So we're going to see that with these minor prophets for the southern kingdom are almost all going to be from Jerusalem, and he was active during 740 to 700 BCE. So he preached of the condemnation of injustice and idolatry. But one of the other major things that's unique to him is he was one of the minor prophets that was prophesying the promise of the Messiah coming from Bethlehem, which is something that, of course, was fulfilled in Jesus. And his historical note was he was active during the Assyrian siege of Jerusalem that occurred around 701 BC. So that's why we know he was active up until around this time, and then a few decades before. So our next prophet is Nahum. So he came after Micah. He was active around 650 BC. He preached in Jerusalem, just like most of the southern minor prophets. He prophesied against Nineveh, and then his historical note is that his prophecies were fulfilled around 612 BCE, because that was around the time of Assyria's fall. So coming after him, who was actually active during the period of this fall, was Zephaniah, who was active between 640 and 609 BCE. So he preached in Jerusalem just like the other southern prophets. So he preached about the judgment for Judah, restoration of the faithful. He was active during King Josiah's reign. So I mentioned the fall of Assyria. So Assyria not just falling, but in this time period was weakening, and then Babylon was rising in strength. Hence why we can get this time period that well, not we, scholars have been able to get this to be pretty accurate. So after Zephaniah was Habakkuk. So Habakkuk was active towards the end of the time period of Zephaniah, and then went a few years after. So he preached in Jerusalem just like the other southern prophets, and his theme was wrestling with God. Specifically about why do the wicked thrive? Why is it that Babylon is strengthening? Why can't they just be crushed? Why can't the people of God prevail? So this was the main theme, which I think is important because he was faithful to God, but could still ask questions. He can still question God, and I think that's important for us. So we can struggle in our faith, we can ask questions, but we can still be faithful. So I think that's important to us today. All right. Next was Haggai, who was active in 520 BC, like the other southern minor prophets, preached in Jerusalem. Was the theme was urging the returned exiles to rebuild the temple. So this was occurring much later. So we talked about Habakkuk was active, up to around 600 BCE. We have about a 60 to 80 year time period based upon what the scholars can nail down. So this was when so Habakkuk, around 600 BC, the historical note, Babylon was preparing to invade Judah. They invade, they capture the people, they take them away to exile. But now there are people returning, and so Haggai was urging the return to rebuild the temple. And this was something that we covered before, or Josh covered before in previous series. So in the historical time period is the Persian Empire, reign of Darius I. After Haggai was Zechariah, so it was active towards the around the same time as Haggai, hence the historical note alongside Haggai, also urged the reconstruction of the temple. He went to about 480 BCE, preached in Jerusalem just like the other southern prophets. His theme was hope, rebuilding, but also pointing towards the Messiah. So that's something that was also unique to him. But basically, Zechariah and Haggai were both kind of preaching the same theme of rebuilding post exile. And next we have Malachi. So Malachi was active a few decades after Zechariah, 430 BCE. So he preached in Jerusalem as well. His theme was faithfulness, but what's unique to him is about his prophecy and his preaching about the coming messenger, which is John the Baptist. And of course, that is fulfilled later in time. He also was active during the Persian Empire, but he was the last to come before the 400 years of silence, before we have Jesus and John the Baptist coming. And that's it for me. So I made this because it was helpful for me to kind of get my head around what's going to be coming in this series with the minor prophets. I hope this will be helpful to some of you to have kind of like some geography and then a chronological organization of some of these minor prophets. So I guess if you have any questions, you can ask Josh, because remember, I'm trained as a scientist. He's the biblical scholar of the church, or you can ask one of the other pastors, I'm guessing. But my goal here is basically to help lay a foundation for this next coming series and help us to kind of build on something that will allow us to learn more. So thanks for listening, and have a good day.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, you can hear more of Image on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast at, or at redemptionwv.com/image, where you can also find any resources mentioned in our podcast and links to follow us on social media. And you can join the conversation by contacting us with any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions. Also, please rate our podcast and write a review at wherever you get your podcast, and that will help us ensure that this content gets to more people.